Turn the lights down low and crank the metal up to a level that is reasonable for your living conditions. Spoopy month is just getting started, so we are back with a new hidden gem, and the word of the day is palate cleanser. After the nightmare that was Clock Tower 3, we need something a bit more fun and competent and also not terrible. So we are taking a quick, and I mean very, very quick, journey into the past with a low-budget title made by a courageous team that refused to give into the pressure imposed on all studios to focus on nothing but 3D games for the 5th gen, raising a middle finger to the entire industry in the form of a love letter to the 2D games that built it to begin with. This is Chippoke Ralph no Daibouken, The Adventures of Little Ralph. Originally, development started back in 1991 for the Sharp X680Z home computer, over time being moved to the PlayStation in 1999. It had always been a passion project focused mostly on paying homage to older arcade games like Wonder Boy or Rastan Saga, but as the decade moved on, other games slipped into the mix, and that combined with its release date almost make it feel as if it was trying to represent the past millennium as a whole. We open on a town mid-Daemon attack led by our villain's head general and vocal nudist advocate, Valgo. Rushing onto scene, our hero Ralph tells Valgo to put some pants on since his gross herpy-riddled cock is scaring off the wenches. However, our story's Jafar hits Ralph with a lolly beam, instantly turning him into a helpless child before ordering his minions to finish him off. We're talking unhappy ending. From off-screen, his girlfriend, Letitia, uses Thundaga, running in to protect her tiny prince, only to receive the double dragon treatment, being stolen away by our villain, who lost interest in the small child the moment he had access to an unconscious woman. Awakened by a magical sword, it promises that with its power he can totally get his babe back, and possibly save the world or whatever. And so we gear up for our adventure, waving goodbye to Ralph's little brother and that fine-looking MILF who raised them, before heading towards the right. This game likes to keep things simple, not just to stay on theme, but also due to the limitations of starting development on a much older system. This makes for a happy accident, creating a game anyone can easily pick up with a difficulty curve that goes well into classic NES territory, while staying fun and encouraging you to get better. We are playing by one-hit Ghost and Goblins rules, as in, you are going to die. A lot. But it will never feel unfair or unbeatable, even at the worst of times. Using button 1 to jump and 2 to attack, we make our way through the starting city and into the waterworks. You do have some additional moves, such as power attacks on your backswing and a downward thrust straight out of DuckTales, but the real obstacle will be the traps. When I say this game is a love letter to all 2D, I mean all 2D, with many of these scenarios feeling straight out of a Ninja Gaiden Donkey Kong Country hybrid. Up top, we run into our first boss encounter with Administrator Oval, doing their best impression of Dr. Robotnik. No strategies this time. The traditional boss fights are sadly very simple, and many can be overcome through brute force, making them the weakest part of a nearly flawless game. However, they will throw a Mazen Saga twist at you very soon, and those battles will be the complete inverse in terms of challenge. The first stage cleared, we quickly move on as the score tallies. This is a speedrun game, made with the intention that you practice and memorize the best paths in order to earn that perfect flawless run. And a neat little detail you usually saw on 7th gen and up, it uses your transition time from one stage to another as a loading screen, so that you are always moving and never once are taken out of the action. While many levels look linear at first, they too follow Sonic the Hedgehog rules, diverging in several locations with the top path usually being the fastest and the most packed with power-ups and bonus items. These will be crucial to winning. The keen-eyed among you may have noticed me taking a hit during that last boss fight, which I was able to shake off due to picking up a shield, which in classic fashion will give you that one-hit buffer. You also have attack upgrades that allow you to fire a projectile, as well as an anime mascot pal who assists with arcing attacks, and can be controlled by player 2 in a similar fashion to Tails. Deep in the sewer dungeon, we come across our rival/palette swap, Devil Guy. A play on the 3,000-year-old Shota trope. He's more than pissed off that our character continually refers to him as a child, while simultaneously refusing to acknowledge his personal situation, and so we throw down. Another simple battle. Your best option is to just keep some distance since you can't really hit him when he's up high. However, if you are patient, he'll come to you, and in that moment you can chain him for multiple attacks, ending all 3 phases of the battle fairly quick. Traveling across the desert and entering into an ancient crypt, we dodge a multitude of hidden traps on our way to confronting the Pharaoh, who wishes to aid us on our quest if we can pass his test. And this one does step it up a bit, forcing you to fight from a distance while continually moving in order to avoid his multitude of attacks. However, if you can keep yourself positioned around the second block, it is still a fairly easy matchup. These boss fights really are just the appetizer for what's coming. The Pharaoh defeated, he lives up to his promise, granting us the power of the Triforce before teleporting us off to our next destination. And it's a jungle stage. That's all I really have to say. It's not that bad a level. In fact, there are no bad levels in this game. However, it is average, and sandwiched in between 2 of the more memorable scenarios, so I end up forgetting it's even in here. Discovering an ancient temple deep within the jungle, we soon come across one of the coolest sections of the game, a minecart chase across the inside of an active volcano. Obviously, my mind immediately went to Donkey Kong Country, but playing that way will go real bad real fast. Instead, your sole focus should be on where you need to jump next. In many instances, you will be given barely less than a second to react. However, the track itself is not that long, with everything being scripted and easy to remember. And trust me, I had plenty of time to memorize this part as I died on repeat. Recovering from a spill, we march into the level boss's lair, going manly mode due to our proximity with one of the villain's generals, the lizard warrior Trayvon. And with these names, I'm starting to think the translation team was just fucking with everyone. This is also where the game switches it up, going full versus mode similar to a game we already covered, Mazen Saga. And when I say it goes versus mode, I mean it goes hard, with every character having a full moveset with supers. This isn't just for fun either. The game actually comes with a full 2-player versus mode, assuming you have friends in real life willing to join in. I did not get to test it. Anyway, Ralph has the standard Ryu moveset with good forward mobility. However, I found that distance control with pokes and air counters worked best in most matchups. Lizard Bro defeated, we trek up into the mountain for another mostly by the books level. It throws a few traps your way, but nothing you won't be able to handle at this point. Outside of the Ice Temple, we run into our bro, Demon Guy, once again. We just want to get going with our mission, but he is very insistent that we fight him, for reasons. Funny thing is, at this point I thought he was going to be a rival turned ally, or possibly a playable character. But no, we just kill him. That did not need to happen. He could have just said nothing and let us go on about our way, but sucks to be him, I guess. There's always been a funny rule to ice levels, either being the worst in the game or being the cool level with a chill atmosphere. Thankfully, this one falls into the latter category, with you starting out fighting your way downhill in a cave, before exploring a dungeon that transitions into a beautiful looking city nightscape, ending with you heading indoors to take on a set of mini-bosses before confronting Valgo once more. Coming in to gloat about the fact he's still got your girl and that he's mastered the art of nudity, Valgo sets down that challenge, and so we accept. The weird fighter of the group, he actually reminds me of 12 from Street Fighter 3. However, the first version of that game hit arcades within a month of this game coming to PlayStation, so it's purely coincidence this time around. You can also play a bit more aggressively in this matchup, with Valgo being less grapple focused than our last opponent. Another easy victory, and it's time to rescue our half-naked princess. That was kinda quick. How much time we got on the clock? That's weird. Anyway, it's unknown who the true villain was behind the scene, or why they were trying to use Letitia's powers, but I'm sure that's not important at all. We can now journey back home to rest, knowing that we have just beaten easy mode, and we need to start over with the difficulty turned up. Cool. Don't you worry, I'm not about to make you watch a second run-through of that first half, and I honestly wasn't all that upset by the reveal. I was legitimately not expecting it to pull that classic NES trick. And this game did take a few tries to get used to during the first run, so by the time I got to the harder mode, it was very easy to run full speed and catch back up within roughly 30 minutes. This time around, Valgo upon defeat informs us that our princess is in another castle, one on a floating island owned by the anime villain Destroyza. We then jack a transport ship, making our exit and heading up towards the flying egg carrier, where we will take on the dragon from Strider before planting some C4 and getting the hell out of there. Crash landing on Angel Island, we begin hopping about while smashing up these weird fruit babies and doing our best to ignore the nightmare fuel all around us, when out of nowhere, we run into her. Someone at this company must really like the girls of Street Fighter, because this character borrows moves from Cammy, Chun-Li, and Karen, and I'm pretty sure she stole Rose's scarf as well. Farrakha is by far the hardest matchup I had in this game, with her overhead having this slow drift to it that lets her home in on the attack. Calling it right now, she's too unbalanced to be allowed in any pro-level Adventures of Little Ralph tournaments, non-existent as they may be. Upon defeat, Farrakha awakens from her mind control, revealing that this island and all of its powers can only be utilized by members of the ancient tribe like herself and Letitia, with the villain using them to gain access to the powerful magical weaponry hidden within the castle. Promising to avenge her, we leave Farrakha to rest, heading towards our final destination, and a battle with Destroyza. That doesn't mean the game is over. Not at all. We're about to Castlevania, with this final gauntlet easily lasting 15 minutes or more, starting you off in the castle foyer before dropping you down into the haunted aqueducts, which will then lead out into the courtyard where we run into some pixie girls. We then dive attack into an even deeper catacomb, which turns into a kinky sex dungeon where we are trapped and forced to descend once more, popping out underneath the castle and rope swinging across the bottom of the entire island itself before climbing back up through the factory/graveyard leading us back into the castle proper. From here there is only one final challenge ahead of us as we make our way towards Dracula's quarters, a multiple part obstacle course that will put everything you've learned up till now to the test, mostly. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but I'm not about to pretend I didn't get 1 or 2 game overs here. However, with a little persistence you can nail the timing and pull through, eventually making it up top to face off against the final boss of the platforming sections. And this guy is not much, almost a bit of a letdown with how easy it is to power through. Just spam attack it in the armor before it can react, and then go for the weak point. You'll quickly be finished and on your way up that final staircase towards the really real totes legit final boss. Coming in for his villain monologue, Destroyza informs us that Letitia is actually the princess of her clan, and capable of generating infinite energy for his floating demon castle, allowing him to summon monsters for some reason. Just go along with it. The game is in on the joke, and playing up the trope of older titles tending to not really make all that much sense. Not wasting any time, he pulls us into the Shadow Realm, and it's another pretty disappointing fight, not gonna lie. Maybe it's more to do with playstyle, but this matchup turned out to be the easiest in the game. This could be by design, since he has a second form, but I could also be giving them way too much credit. Brushing himself off, Destroyza strips down, going full Jonathan Joestar, promising to give us a real fight this time, with his fists like a man. And so we stab him with our huge sword repeatedly. This final battle did go hard, making up for the previous 2, lasting well into overtime, with the health bars almost fighting back against us, as if the whole thing were one big troll by the developers, and I kinda loved them for it. Defeated, Destroyza gets in his final words, informing us that the machinery connected to the heart of his castle is also connected to him, and with his passing it will soon self-destruct, destroying all life on the planet. Unsure what to really do with that information, our hero walks off to go get his girl and maybe knock out one last quickie before the end of all life as we know it. However, Letitia, being the one with integrity, denies the copulous request, choosing to use what little control she possesses over the castle to fly it off high and into the atmosphere, in hopes that her self-sacrifice will spare the planet. Surrounded by enemies and with no possible exits, Ralph heroically pledges to stay by her side till the bitter end, as if he had a choice in the matter. Taking off high into the heavens, the castle barely clears Earth's atmosphere before self-detonating, taking everyone on board with it. However, Ralph's magical sword buddy, seeing their sacrifice, deemed them worthy of his protection, intervening this one and only time to allow them a second chance at life together. And that was the adventures of Little Ralph, and right off the bat I have to give a huge shout out to the translation team for making this game possible to play in English. Full support to any team or individual programmer willing to go out there on their own to make it happen. The list of games I would not be able to cover without that community is staggering. This one was a pleasant surprise, randomly tested out in between recording Clock Tower and my current run of Fatal Frame, and it was so good that I just had to give it a spotlight in between the horror games. The entire playthrough was enjoyable from start to finish without a single low point or bad level, so this is definitely one I would recommend to everyone to try at least once. October is just getting started, and as just mentioned, a Fatal Frame run is nearing completion, and there will be more, so stay tuned for that. And as always, I want to thank everyone for watching, and that special thanks to everyone who got adopts this week, and I will catch you in the next one.